Ayodhya is awaiting its pratishtha, quite literally. It's not just the Ram Lalla idols. What does Ayodhya mean for Bharat? Let's speak to Amish Tripathi. He needs really no introduction. He's a diplomat. He is also an author. He has written bestsellers. He has a view, and an intelligent one. And therefore, let's open this up. Bhaks await January 22nd. One of them is Mr. Tripathi. Let's decode this renaissance that is going to happen right before our eyes. Ayodhya's rise and Bharat, what does it actually mean? It's being billed as the Nagari of Nyay. Now, Mr. Tripathi, thank you very much for speaking to me on the hard facts. Ram is described as a universal symbol of inclusivity. Can you elaborate on this?
Look, it's very easy to be inclusive to those who are your own.
Right.
The point is, how do you behave with those who are not your own, who are not from your family, who are not from your own community? We see many examples of that in all versions of the Ram. We are all aware of course, across India and across communities with Nishad Raj, with Ma Shabri, how inclusive Lord Ram was with his kingdom. At times, he was more inclusive with the people of his kingdom than even at the cost of his own family, right? But I think the true example of inclusivity you see if how an individual behaves, or how a god or any person behaves with those who oppose him, right? Look at the way Lord Ram behaved with Ravan's family, even after Ravan's death, right? With Vibhishan, with the entire, they were all treated with respect, right? Even Ravan's dead body was treated with respect. He was given full Vedic funeral, the ceremonies. When he came back home, Ma Keke, who was responsible for him being banished. How did Lord Ram behave? All of us know that. He bent down and touched Ma Keke's feet. He had no anger, no angst. That to me is true inclusivity.
Now, can all religious communities feel secure in a Ram Rajya, in a putative Ram Rajya? The BJP says it wants to usher in a Ram Rajya.
Look, I won't get into politics of it, but if it's run according to the principles of Ram Rajya, yes, every single community is a part of it. I mean, and there's this lovely line that Lord Ram himself had said in the Ramcharitmanas, Purush Napunsak Nari va Jiva Charachar Koi Sarv Bhav Bhaja Kapata Taji Mohi Param Priya Soi. That any man, any woman, any transgender as well, any living being, any plant, any animal, you give up deceit, love each other, come to me, you're my people. You can't get a more inclusive statement, than that. Even in terms of practice today, you find so many, I'm doing a documentary on the Ram Janmabhoomi ji, and there are so many Muslims who are coming to Ayodhya and taking darshan out there. Among them is also Irfan Saab, who was one of the litigants. And he has said that he wants to take the darshan of Ram Lalla. And this to me shows inclusivity. Also, one of the things to learn from Lord Ram is that the nation will be united and strong when we are protected from external enemies. There's a lovely line that Lord Ram had said once again in the Ramayana, Bhai Bena Hoy Na Preet, that without fear, there is no true love. So our enemies should fear us, so that they should know that we will not go looking for a fight. But if anyone attacks us, or puts any Indian anywhere in the world in harm's way, they should know that India will come for the protection of their Indian. And we've shown that repeatedly. When Indians have got stuck in war zones, we've got Indians back. These are the principles of Ram Rajya.
So you're saying that Ram's views and his principles have practical application even today. Okay, let me just go back to what you said. You said that every community has some sort of link to Lord Ram. Can you be more specific with examples of their links?
within the Ramayana itself, as one spoke of different communities across India when he traveled. I gave the example of Nishadraj, I gave the example of Shabrima, I gave the example of how he treated the Mayuranga dynasty as well, that is Ravan's dynasty, even after the death of Ravan, how he treated the people of Lanka itself, who he didn't behave like an invader who was fighting his enemy. The people of Lanka, who had nothing to do with the battle, were treated with honor and respect. How he treated the Vanars, the respect he gave to the Vanar Sena, to Sugriv, to all of them. This is what actually shows inclusivity. Now, obviously, one cannot give examples which would be related to Islam or Christianity because those religions didn't exist at
Didn't
that
exist.
point of time. But the principles are very clear. And once again, one is seeing the example of this in the modern day in people like Irfan Saab and people like K.K. Mohammed Saab, who's an archaeologist, whose work helped prove the existence of, was one of the things which helped prove the existence of the temple in the court. And K.K. Mohammed Saab had said, in our documentary, I'm paraphrasing, he said so beautifully that Babar was a foreigner. He was from Uzbekistan. Baki was a foreigner. I'm an Indian Muslim. What do I have to do with them?
Okay.
And this to me is the spirit of Indian togetherness, Indian unity within our diversity.
Indian unity. Well, the BJP says that, look, they're not appropriating Lord Ram, but they're certainly appropriating the values that he espouses, and therefore, through that, they want to be the conduit of the establishment of Ram Rajya. But as you know, there is a whole ecosystem that says that Gandhiji, for example, his view of Ram Rajya is very different from the BJP's view of Ram Rajya. Is this a correct assessment on the ecosystem, the left liberal, so-called left liberal ecosystem's part?
Look, I mean, I won't get into politics, but I would say that everyone's conception of Ram Rajya can be different. So, for a very simple example, I mean, again, I'm not getting into politics, but Mahatma Gandhi, BJP, Congress, all of them, I guess they would all agree on one of the principles that Mahatma Gandhi had taken up, that we must work against the caste system, that we must, treat all as equal, which, as I said earlier, was actually Lord Ram's philosophy as well. In this, you would find people across the political spectrum agree with Mahatma Gandhi. But in some cases, maybe there's a difference because, for example, Mahatma Gandhi was a proponent of non-violence. Would he have advocated a battle with, say, with our Western neighbor, over national issues? Maybe not. And maybe that would be closer to the Jain version of the Ramayana. I'm sure where there's a Jain version of the Ramayana in which Lord Ram is completely non-violent. But in the Valmiki Ramayana or the Ramcharitmanas, Lord Ram is extremely inclusive and kind with those who deserve it. But when he had to fight with enemies, he fought. He didn't go looking for fights, right? But if he had no choice, he tried everything possible to avoid a fight. Like he did with Ravan as well, he sent an emissary in the form of Prince Angad, to try and make peace without war, but that was rejected. Then Lord Ram had no choice; he fought. So in this way, modern Indians do agree that perhaps with our Western neighbor or anyone else, if someone attacks us, we will fight back. In
So,
this way, perhaps maybe we are different from Mahatma Gandhi.
so let me
So
ask
some
you.
places we agree, some places, but that's the Indian way. We all have our different points of view. As long as there's mutual respect, there's no problem.
And we can coexist with those differences. I think that's a valid point. But Mr. Tripathi, you've made a documentary detailing the struggle to reclaim Ram's Janamsthan. Now, I'm just going to ask you very candidly, and I don't know if this is a political question or not, but certainly it's a question that needs to be asked. Why did we have to wait so long for the state to reclaim what was fundamentally a civilizational question?
The one of the things perhaps that we can learn from Lord Krishna is the value of strength and unity and power. Um, the Ram Janmabhoomi temple was destroyed in 1528
Right.
by foreign invaders. Did Indians have the power to fight back? We did the best that we could, but we lost many battles. That's a reality of what happened. But what I think is remarkable is that even post independence, because it's not about how you are when you're powerless. When you have less power, you should be defined, right? That is Lord Ram's way. But when you have power, you should not be someone who just rides roughshod over everyone else, because that is also Lord Ram's way. That he will behave with grace when he has power. The fact that excuse me, the struggle for this temple primarily took place in courts of law, where arguments were put up, where proofs were put up, where debates happened. In some way, I would say that is actually dharmic. Unlike what happened in the case of Hagia Sophia, where recently it was just kind of by a stroke of the administrator's pen, just converted back into a mosque. It was originally a church. In fact, before that, it was originally a pagan temple to the goddess.
That's
I'm
true.
sure you're aware, even the Pope had made a statement at that time that this was a church and is this the way it should have been. Uh, Unlike in India, where it was this struggle happened through proofs, through evidence, through the court of law. It's longer, harder, but I would
But
say it's a more dharmic way, because that is why you find that even the Muslim litigant like Irfan Saab, because he saw the evidence. It wasn't that, he himself as a litigant saw
but
the evidence. Maybe that's why he wants to come to the temple,
okay.
because he saw that that evidence was true,
But it was nearly
right? How would his reaction have been different if
yeah.
it hadn't gone through this long hard process?
But
So I feel there is perhaps a value in this long hard process where evidence is put up,
but that
proofs are.
evidence, Mr. Tripathi, was nearly lost. And you know this because you spoke to Mr. K.K. Mohammed in the course of making your documentary. And that was lost because there were, after independence particularly, many political stratagems that were deployed to stall the reclamation.
Yeah, it was. I think it was unfortunate. There was in much of our historiography, there was a
I
regrettable
mean,
Western influenced Marxist approach to it.
right.
Um, and one of the things that I find, I've lived in London for 4.5 years, and many Indians or Hindus feel that the leftists and the Marxists, are biased or bigoted against Hinduism in India. It'll surprise you to know that in the West, many Westerners believe that the leftists and the Marxists are biased and bigoted against Christianity. They, one of my friends out there was telling me they seem to have a problem with whatever the majority religion or culture is.
Okay.
This was unfortunate, and
But,
um, perhaps the intellectual battle was lost. Uh, and maybe at a deeper level, we were in such dire straits economically. I guess maybe if when your stomachs are empty, how do you find the mind space to fight these battles? It's only post 1991 that it could take place. And one of my learnings, perhaps from the last 4.5 years in London and coming back, I think Hindus and Muslims would have got along very well if perhaps some of these troublemakers had not been there. There were many Muslims who had said in the 1980s, "Give us the evidence, and we will, accept it." And sadly, some of these troublemakers carried forward the British uh,
well, they thought,
divide and rule policy. If you think about it, why is the Turkey colonial rule presented as Islamic rule? Right? When the British colonial rule is not presented as Christian rule.
right.
So it is to confuse the Indians to think that Indian Muslims were ruling us, which is
Right.
not the truth. They were foreigner Turks
That's true.
who ruled us. Indian Muslims were as oppressed as Indian Hindus. There's enough evidence for that. There's a Paswanda Muslim scholar called Faiz Ahmad who's shown a lot of work on this. And this perhaps created the divides.
Well, look, in their defense, not that I'm standing in their defense, but to be fair to them, they'd say that, look, state should not interfere in religious affairs. And they continue to maintain that sort of line of reasoning. They say the Prime Minister will be Chief Yajman, and that, as you know, has been confirmed at the Pran Pratishtha. Many say that this conflates the state with religion. Your view on this?
Look, as far as a Hindu temple is concerned, the reality is that the state has been appropriating Hindu temple wealth and property for over 100 years now. I'm sure you must be aware that the only religion who doesn't have the independence to run its own worship places without the interference of the state is Hinduism.
I put it in my book.
And the government cannot take over or interfere in Christian churches, Muslim mosques, Sikh gurudwaras, but can and does in Hindu temples and appropriates a lot of Hindu wealth too. For many state governments fund their fiscal deficits out of, is this fair? Is this secularism? I say perhaps a very, very tiny proportion of the wealth that has already been appropriated by the Indian state over many decades is being reinvested back, which is kind of only fair. Ideally, Hindus should have the same freedom to run their worship places that Indian Christians, Indian Muslims and Sikhs have.
Well, Amish Tripathi, thank you for speaking to me on the hard facts. Very balanced point of view, viewers, but very well researched. Provides answers to a lot of questions that are being asked, and I hope out of this conversation you got the answers. We'll take